first. Good morning, grade 10. Good morning, Margie and Dimitri. I only have 2 students here. Let's continue with the discussions. We are still in the translation part, okay, of the mRNA or the RNA, okay. Let's move now to the tRNA, okay, or the transfer RNA. The transfer RNA picks up the amino acid, methionine or methionine, okay, methionine. This, again, methionine is actually the what? The starting codon, okay. Again, the anticodon for methionine is the UAC or uracil adenine cytosine. Okay, we discussed this one already, that this anticodon, which actually the tRNA or transfer RNA binds with another, okay, binds with another what? Another codon to create what? A set, okay, of the RNA, which is the what? The messenger RNA. So if you're going to look at the pattern, okay, the UAC, which is actually the anticodon of the methionine, which is the A, which is the AUG, okay, binds in the P site, meaning to say that this is the starting site, right? And so on with the body. So the body is in the A site until it reaches what? The stop codons. So these stop codons are UAA or uracil adenine adenine, okay, uracil guanine and adenine, or uracil adenine guanine. So these are the stop codons. Okay, the ribosome gets stuck, waiting for the tRNA. Okay, waiting for the tRNA that will never come and eventually falls off. So that's the signal that it is actually what? That's the stop codon. Okay, releasing the newly synthesized protein with the help of the special protein called the releasing factor that binds the stop codon and release the mRNA from the ribosome. Okay, the mRNA may bind with another ribosome, the one that I'm telling you, for translation, and may be broken down by enzymes, right? The polypeptide goes in the Golgi complex or Golgi bodies to combine with fats, okay, minerals or carbohydrates to make complex proteins. This is now the table that I am actually telling you last meeting. So if you're going to look at this, where's the starting codon here? Where's the starting codon? Okay, the starting codon is the methionine. This one, AUG. Okay, and the stop codon is the UAA. This one, UAG, UGA. Okay, right? So these are actually the proteins, okay, that controlled. These are actually controlled by the set of codons that you are actually carrying. Okay, like for example, if your codon is carrying uracil, okay, it is actually what? Phenylalanine. If your codon is carrying uracil cytosine, okay, it is what? If it is uracil cytosine and cytosine, okay, it is serine or serine. Okay, those are few, right? These are the table, okay, that actually represents, okay, those proteins, right? Mutation. So this is actually one of the interesting topic in genetics, simply because mutations has a lot of factor. Mutations also can actually change, okay, change a particular organism, maybe for good, but sometimes very bad, okay, especially in human. Okay, genes control the characteristic or traits that you may inherit. Okay, if a change happens in the gene or chromosome, the traits will be correspondingly be altered too.
Morning,
Okay,
sir.
a permanent change. Yes, MD. Good morning. A permanent change in a gene or chromosome in a cell is called mutation. Okay, if there are some mutation, again, tendency is there are some changes in the genetic characteristic, or it is actually altered. Okay, point mutation is a mutation that exchanges one nucleotide for another. It may be harmless. Yes, it could be if the change of the codon for the same amino acid, but it may also cause a change that the DNA may lead to disorder section of the DNA. It could actually change for what? For good, but it can also harm an organism. The one I am always stressing this out because there are a lot of mutations also that actually enables an organism to live more, enables an organism to um, prosper. It's to prosper, okay, its generation or to prosper its species, right? Let's continue. Again, it could be harmless, but of course it can harm. Okay. If the change happens in any of the body cell, the change may not be life-threatening. It could be. Okay. However, if the change takes place in either sperm or egg cell, the daughter cells from the division, these parent sex cells will altogether be affected by the change, and the mutation will be passed in its offsprings. Okay. While many mutations are harmful, some are not. Of course, however, in extreme cases, mutations can cause death. One good example is number one, mutation that can actually cause no harm to humans. Okay, what are these mutations? Number one, dimples. That is actually mutation. Okay. Number two, divided chin. That is actually mutation. What are the mutations that can cause harm to organism? Humans. Name one. The one that you actually observe or you know. Are you still with me? What are mutations that can cause harm as you can observe? Name one. Trisomy 21. Okay. The Down syndrome. It can actually affect the brain. Okay. That's mutation. Trisomy. Meaning to say that the chromosome in the 21st, okay, 21st lineup of the chromosomes are actually 3 instead of 2. Trisomy 21. Okay. What else? What else? There are some cases also. I have seen this in some of the news that a baby is born without rib cage. That is actually harmful to an organism. Okay? Without rib cage, the heart and the other organs are actually exposed. So
How
those
about,
are
sir,
few.
the one with like a smaller brain, a baby with a very small brain?
Yeah, that case also. So there is a term. It is actually a case wherein the brain didn't actually develop. Okay, and of course, this can actually harm an individual. This can actually harm the organism. What else? What else? How about conjoined or conjoined twins, which has a twin which shared a single body, a single heart, and some organs. So those can actually harm an individual. Those are just few of these mutations. Okay. Let's take a look at biodiversity and evolution. Do you have any question with mutations? All right. Let's move now to biodiversity and evolution. How could this, okay? How could the translation, the replication, preparing for the recipe for an individual connect to biodiversity and evolution. Okay, we actually tackled some parts of the genetics. Okay, and connect it. We will try to connect it with biodiversity and evolution. Okay, how could this actually connect? What is the connection, or what are the connections between biodiversity, evolution, and genetics? Okay, Charles Darwin and evolution. Since years prior to Darwin's theory of evolution, it was believed that organisms and species were unchanging. They are not actually changing. Before Darwin's theory of evolution, okay, created perfectly and fixed. Only a few scientists questioned this belief. Okay, in the early 1800s, French naturalists Jean-Baptiste Lamarck developed a more concrete theory, okay, about organic evolution. He actually stressed two important themes in his work. First, okay, he stated, okay, that animals adapt to the changes in the environment. Even us, we adapt to the changes in the of environment. Okay, that is based on Lamarck's observation and, of course, his work. Okay, number two or second, bodies and all their different parts make it probable for the organic movement, okay, in animals, and that life is organized and structured in an orderly manner. Okay, Lamarck's idea about the relationship of environment and evolution helped set the stage of Darwin's theory of evolution. Meaning to say that Lamarck is talking about the environment, the effect of the environment. Okay, what is actually the role of the environment in an organism for the survival of the organism. Charles Darwin was born in 1809, the same year that Lamarck published his ideas on evolution. This is before, again, Lamarck published his work before, okay, the birth of Darwin. At the age of 22, Darwin ventured on an expedition collecting thousands of specimens, fossils, and other living animals and plants. Going to the different islands of South America, he observed various organisms that were unique to specific place but still shared certain similarities to other organisms he examined. Okay. Later on, he wrote, both in space and time, we seem to both somewhat near to that great fact that the mystery of mysteries, the first appearance of new beings on Earth. That is actually from Darwin. After 5 years of voyage, Darwin strongly questioned the belief that Earth and organisms are unchanging and have been specifically created 1,000 years prior. He believed that Earth was indeed very old and constantly changing. Okay? Throughout the years, and after writing several essays, Darwin offered a great deal of evidence supporting evolution. Okay? He described his theory of natural selection. Okay? Here comes the birth of the theory of natural selection by Charles Darwin. Okay? Which supported and provided explanation of how evolution occurs. What's inside the theory of evolution of Charles Darwin? Okay? According to the theory of evolution of Charles Darwin, he actually talked about the survival of the strong, the elimination of the weak. Okay? Those who can adapt to certain environment, those who can adapt to the change in the environment, okay, especially now the climatic changes, will continue its generation, will continue its species. And those who are weak, those who cannot adapt, will eventually die. Okay, this is actually the one of the explanation why there are some extinction of animals aside from hunting, aside from human activity. So this is some, okay, of this is one of the reason of some of the animals being extinct. Okay, evidence of evolution. There are a lot of evidence of evolution. Let's take a look at this one. Darwin perceived that there are some similarities in organisms, a unifying factor that relate a descendant from ancestors that live in a distant past. As these descendants spread out and live in different locations, they experience different climates Okay, since they actually experience different climates, they're actually exposed to that. They can actually adapt. Okay, that's the case. Okay, this lead to the modification and adaptation that were necessary for them to survive and propagate. Okay, again, based on theories, Charles Darwin theory of evolution, okay, that those who are weak will be eliminated and those who are strong can actually continue their generation by adaptation. This is it. Evolution came about as a way to understand how genes and traits are carried on from one generation to the next. It has become the greatest unifying theory in biology. Okay, Darwin's on the origin of species paved the way of continuing knowledge of biological research up to date. Okay, most evolutionary evidences are grouped in the following categories. One, fossil records. This is now the evidences. Okay, again, scientists work on facts. They work on evidences. Okay, they will actually publish an article if there are some evidence that they can actually gather. Okay, again, there are some categories of these evidences. Number one is fossil records. Number two is biochemical evidence. Number three is comparative anatomy. Okay, the observable anatomy, the one that we are actually observing, the anatomical structure of an organism. And the last would be the observable events. Let's take a look at fossil records. What's in the fossil records? Darwin collected traces and remains of organisms that lived long ago. Okay, fossils are usually found in sedimentary layers simply because they're actually buried in sediments, which means the more layers, the more evidence there is of different organisms. Okay, he actually checked on the fossils or the remains of these ancestors of these animals or primitive animals, and of course check on their characteristics. Let's move now to biochemical evidence. What's with the biochemical evidence? The nitrogen base pairs, remember, sequence, your codons in the genetic code are same in most or all organisms. They're the same. What actually differs them is actually the number one, the arrangement. Okay. Number two, the number of chromosomes. So those are just few. Okay. Those are the difference of all the organisms, but their biochemical composition are the same, regardless what an organism is. Okay. Comparative anatomy. It's in the mainly of the biological structure of animals. Most have similar structures but have different functions. They have similar structures but different functions, just like this one. Okay. Comparative anatomy between species. Look at. This is the anatomy of cats' feet, front feet. I think this is front feet. Okay. A front foot. And this is the arm of human. As you can see, if you're going to look at the anatomical structure of cat's foot and human hand, they're actually the same with ulna, radius, humerus, carpus, phalanges, same with the other animals, but different function. Okay, we actually use our hands, okay, to move and to pick up something, but in cat they use this one as their foot, okay, in order for them to walk and run. In whale, they use this for swimming, okay, so that they can also move, so that they can actually become mobile, okay, they can swim. And of course, in flying animals like bat, they use this for flying, okay. So again, if you're going to check also other animals, like for example, in the example here, fish, turtle, salamander, and human. Okay, they look the same. Why? Because these are vertebrates. Okay, and vertebrates has notochord. Okay, spines. So this is actually one of the study of Darwin, the comparative. This is one of the evidence that actually suggests that Darwin tells us that there is actually evolution for the survival of the species. Okay, based on the comparative anatomy, based on what he actually observed. Like I observed that they have the same, but different function. Okay, they are actually similar, but with different functions. So this is actually under comparative anatomy. Let's move now to observable events. Do you have any questions so far?
None, sir.
How about Margie and Dimitri? Margie and Dimitri? Oh, by the way, talking about your second quarter modules, activities, again, please comply all of them, okay? Because I am still in the middle of recording them. And of course, I will only accept, okay, the second module or the second quarter modules, activities, only this third quarter. After third quarter, I will not accept them again. I will not record them, right? Just check again, run through with all your activities in order for me also to assist you with your concerns. Okay? Let's move now to observable events. Changes have been observed in species over time. There are a lot of changes in species. Okay? This is because these species evolved, okay, in order to survive. They need to adapt. These observable changes show the evolution is an ongoing process until now. Okay, evolution never stops. It is actually a continuous process. Okay, what is evolution then? It is actually defined as any change in the inheritable traits within a certain population across generations. Okay, these inheritable traits pertain to physical aspects such as color of the petals and flowers, spots on the wings of butterflies, the instinctive behavior like migration patterns of animals, among others. Why do animals need to migrate? Do you have any idea? Why certain animals need to migrate? Do you have any idea? What do you think is the reason why these animals need to migrate?
To sur
Yes, MD? Kamagan, MD?
to sur to survive.
To survive, correct. Okay, to survive. That's the main reason. Why? Okay, let's take a look at the dog, the one that I am giving you last meeting, that I am actually telling you last meeting. This dog needs to migrate if the area is really cold or under winter. Okay, in winter time, these birds need to migrate in order for them to survive because again, they cannot survive on winter. Number one, they cannot actually what? Get their food. There's no food in winter. Number two, they cannot actually surpass the cold environment. Remember, these are warm-blooded animals and they need a certain temperature for them to survive. So again, these are just few, okay? DNA plays an important role in the evolution process. Changes in the genetic code affect the characteristic and traits in the succeeding generations because they can actually pass it on. Okay, in order for the organism to continue its generation. Okay, as these certain traits are manifested and are carried on in the next generations, evolutions can be observed, or this evolution can be observable. Okay, with that particular organism. Okay. Let's move now to Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection. What's with the natural selection? The one that I am actually discussing a while ago. Also, at the expedition, Darwin recognized that all species produce quite a number of offspring. Okay? He reasoned that organisms possessing adaptive characteristics have a better chance to survive and to reproduce. Okay? Compared to to individuals who do not have such characteristics. Okay? He actually observed that those who can adapt, okay, to the certain changes has a better chance to survive. Okay, Darwin sought the basic and central mechanism of evolution of reproduction in a process called the natural selection. Okay, when you say natural selection, it is actually nature. Nature that actually selects what's the best. Okay, He perceives that this process of selection is unequal in terms of success in reproduction. Because again, those who are weak will be eliminated and those who are strong will continue its generation. The environment plays a role in filtering changes and variations in traits. Favored traits are being expressed compared to unfavored traits, which become less and unlikely to survive and leave the progeny or progeny results, okay, in the gradual change in the characteristic of a population of organisms, with the favored traits accumulating and carried over to the next generation. Meaning to say, those favored characteristics will continue, and those who cannot adapt or those who don't have that characteristic will eventually eliminated in the progeny. Okay? Progeny or what? Progeny or the generation or the species. Okay? Natural selection can be summed up to the famous line, matira ang matibay. Okay? The strong will continue its generation. Simple. By studying the natural selection, Darwin found convincing evidence for his ideas in the results of artificial selection. Okay? Artificial selection is selective breeding of domesticated plants and animals with desirable characteristic. So we actually have selective breeding. That's artificial selection. If we have natural selection, we have also artificial selection. Sure, what's the artificial selection? Like for example, I want to breed in dogs, I want to breed a chow chow. It's a pure chow chow. I will not mix another breed. That is actually artificial selection because you are choosing a particular what? A particular breed. Like for example, I will breed a GMO of potato, okay, to make it as a fries, potato fries. Okay, that is actually selective breeding because you are actually choosing a particular breed for that certain desirable characteristic. You want that desirable characteristic, then we will actually make or create, okay, an organism with that desirable characteristic. I want to breed a German Shepherd, pure German Shepherd. I will not mix it with other breed. So that is actually selective breeding. Okay, you're not we're not giving a chance to nature to do its part. You are creating your own. Okay, you're actually getting the desirable characteristic. That is selective breeding or artificial selection. This means that certain qualities and traits are magnified to show the desired characteristic and discouraging the breeding of individuals with undesirable characteristics. I usually see this one at the back of my mind. I usually look to this one as in our own homes. We usually want, okay, those expensive breeds of dog, correct? We tend to what? We tend to reject, okay? We tend to reject the Aspins, okay? Asong Pinoy, Aspins, because again, those hybrids, okay? Those hybrids has desirable characteristic. Fluffy hair, what else? Snouty, a nose, what else? So those are few. Okay, we tend to get the best out of the breed. Okay, human therefore play the role of environment by choosing organisms to get to reproduce. Okay, you want to breed that particular that particular breed only. Okay, that's artificial selection. Farmers and breeders have long been using the idea of artificial selection even before Darwin, okay, in farming. Okay, we see this evidence of artificial selection in food that we eat. Okay, for example, corn has been a staple food throughout the years. Ancient farmers took the first step in domesticating corn by choosing different kernels. Okay, they noticed that not all corn plants grow in the same. Some may have kernels that tasted better or were easier to grind. while others grows much taller than the rest. So they actually see this characteristic. Okay, they already observe this characteristic, and they tend to what? They tend to reproduce the best corn. Okay, these farmers then choose kernels with desirable characteristic and planted them. The process produced corns that were larger, had more kernel rows, and generally more useful. Today, corn goes through the series of selection that consider the following criteria. Take note, these are now the desirable characteristic. Ability to grow in different types of soil or climate, so that climatic conditions or climate conditions, so that again we can actually have more production. They can survive in different climatic conditions. Number two, kernel size. Okay. Number three, resistance to pests. Okay. Remember that these are exposed in the fields, cornfields, and many more. So these are just few of the desirable characteristic that we are actually observing. Genetic variation is extensive in most populations. Okay, it is defined a difference between cells, individual organisms, or group of organisms of many species cause their genotypic and phenotypic variation. Talking about genotypes and phenotypes. When you say genotypes, these are the complete set of genes. Okay, these are the genes. Genotype, genes. Okay, when you say phenotype, these are the observable characteristic, the one that you can actually observe. Tall, what else? Shiny, what else? Black colored hair, blue eyes. These are phenotypes. But behind that phenotype, behind that genes is the genotype. Okay? Variations may be expressed largely in physical appearance, but can also be observed in behavior, metabolism, or mode of reproduction. Do you have any questions so far?
None, sir.
Okay. However, not all variation can be passed on the offspring. Okay, results of phenotype are related to the interaction of genotype with its environment. However, not all variations can be passed on by the offspring. Now, the environment plays a vital role in molding this variation. Okay, results of phenotype are related to the interaction of genotype with its environment, which can be highly influential. Just like this example. Let's see, let's have this example. Let's have two twins. Okay. The first the first twin will be exposed in a rural area, and the second twin will be exposed in urban area. What do you think will be the variations? What do you think will be the behavior, and what do you think will happen to these twins? We expose the other one to rural area and expose the other one to urban area. Are they still the same because they are twins? The answer is no. They will have difference, number one, in the behavior, number two, in the way they act, and number three, way of living. So this is now the variations that I'm telling you. Okay. Do you have any question? Question? For example, ballet training improves your ability to perform different dance routines, but this does not necessarily mean that you will pass your environmentally produced skills, your muscle memory, to your offspring. It cannot be passed because, again, that you actually learn ballet, okay, to your environment. When you speak of variation in terms of natural selection, we look at the genetic component. This cannot be passed. Okay? Like for example, I'm good in badminton. Okay? I'm good in badminton and I learn badminton in my environment. So I cannot pass it on to my next generation because this is not actually what? Under the genotypes, or under the genetic component. This is actually what I gained, okay, in my environment environmental interaction. Okay, my interaction in my environment. Okay, I learned these skills in my environment. Right? Factors that affect genetic variation can be linked to mutation, which is the permanent change in chemical structure of a gene. Mutations occur in the body or the body cells most, but is lost when the individual died. Okay? Only the mutation in the cells that produce gametes, okay, or sex cells can be passed, okay, or can be passed on to the offspring and potentially affect the population's gene pool, or shall we say kaliwat, the gene pool. Okay, let's tackle speciation by next meeting. Hopefully you learned something out of our simple discussion. Do you have any questions so far? Grade 10? Question?
Sir.
How about Margie and Demetri? Margie and Demetri, are you still with us? All right. I think that will help for today, class. Let's continue by next meeting, hopefully, because this is part again of genetics, and this is one of the interesting topic in science, right? Thank you for your participation, MD, Demetri, and Margie. Have a nice day, grade 10. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.